Regular meeting of City Council to order for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. So our first order of business is two delegations. 2.1, we have Mr. Vinay Parmar, resident of Dawson Creek, in attendance regarding a request for a monument. So welcome, Vinay. You can just go up there and then just hit the button on that little black base. And I will turn that on. Perfect. Yeah, and the floor is all yours, so welcome. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about what you're doing, so if you want to do that, and then we'll ask any questions if there is from council after. So.
Okay, my name is Vinay Parmar. I currently reside in Puskupi. I've grew up in Dawson Creek, except for a few short stints away for education. I've always returned to Dawson Creek in the area. My idea is to construct a monument dedicated to people who have passed away of COVID. The biggest person in my life and the biggest influence in my life was my mother, but unfortunately she passed away of COVID. That had a major influence on my health and the rest of my life because, as I said, she was the biggest role model for me and my biggest hero. And no matter how many stupid things I did, she always supported me in the end, no matter how many strange hobbies I had or how many strange interests I had. Despite the fact that my father would get very angry, she always supported me no matter what I did. And she ended up paying for, as a typical Generation X, my many majors in university at her expense. As I said, I think this pandemic was the most significant thing I've seen in my lifetime. Something I never would have imagined except in an apocalyptic science fiction movie, and it happened in real life. And the biggest casualty in my life was my mother. If you have any questions, I guess now will be the time.
Thanks, Vinay. And I know we've met before, and definitely condolences and sorry to hear about your mother and what you went through. And I know COVID on a lot of people was tough. So yeah. So and then your plan, like you're wanting to see if the city will look at building like a monument. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, exactly, or something in this area. It doesn't have to be Dawson Creek, but something. One of the other places where the idea came from when I was online, I think I saw a monument in either Washington or New York dedicated to the same people who died.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'll open it up to council if there's any questions. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Vinay, thanks for coming to see us this morning. I know we chatted a bit a couple weeks ago when you mentioned this initiative, and once again, I do my condolences with the passing of your mother. I'm not going to say I knew her well, but every time I did have the chance to interact with her, she was delightful. And COVID was a pretty grim couple of years for everybody. I know we here in the South Peace had one of the highest per capita death rates, I think, in the province. So my question would be, with the building of the new hospital set to begin this year, might, with respect to putting some sort of memorial display, it just occurred to me now, it might be an opportune time to approach Northern Health.
Oh, actually, that's a great idea.
About having something in the hospital to memorialize and commemorate the passing and the significance of that event.
Okay.
So would that, unless you have kind of some specific ideas in mind about what you'd like to see, would that potentially fit within what you're looking for?
That might be a good place to construct it.
Yeah, because then it's not just contained to, it is located in Dawson Creek, but certainly, we are, our community is bigger than just the city of Dawson Creek. So.
Right.
And I think, okay, well, thank you again for coming to see us, and
You're
maybe we can discuss that further.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Earl. Good idea. Anybody else? I also had some things too. I know the city in the past has had like we've talked about it before, but they've done like, park benches throughout the park and the walking trail and, in memory of people or, recognition of certain events. But there's also like in Kin Park, I know there's an area where there's plaques that have been put up as well too, that there used to be a program. So I know we've talked a little bit about that too. So, and is that something you're not, like you more looking for a monument? Because I'm just trying to figure out, so after this, it comes back to council later on and we kind of make a decision which way we're going to move forward or not. But in these delegations, it's just, it's good for us to have a clear direction where you see it, so that when we talk about it later, we're not talking about something different than you're
Right.
intending. So,
As far as the actual shape or physical construction or the appearance of the monument, I actually haven't thought of it. I just came up with the idea of a monument so far, but I haven't really gone into detail as to the dimensions or size or anything like that, or what form it will take.
so like, you know, if we did come back later and talked about like, you know, in Kin Park, a bench or a plaque, is that something that's significant enough to, like, that you're thinking, or are you thinking something bigger, like?
I only think that I would request would be that the names of the people who died in this area would appear on the monument of COVID.
Yeah, okay.
As far as, like I said, the shape or the appearance, I'm not really concerned with that so much, or what form it takes.
Okay. Councillor Earl, you want to?
Okay, thank you, Worship. I just bookend your point of saying with respect to, and I don't think it's necessarily, it's fine to put names on there, but it is going to have to be on a voluntary basis for the sake of privacy.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah, that was the only point I was going to add to inform and discuss, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't, if there's no other questions, I don't think I have any more, so I just want to, you know, thank you for coming in, and we'll talk about it later on, and under Mayor's update, we'll go through it and just see, you know, where council wants to go with it, and then we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and letting me appear before council. It's quite a positive experience.
Yeah, awesome, we're glad you could make it, thank you very much.
you.
So,
Thanks. I just exit? Or?
yeah, you
Okay.
can, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vinay. All right, our next order of business is 2.2. We have Mr. John Vetter, Director, South Peace District Crime Prevention Association, and Art Seidel, Chairman of Dawson Creek and District Rural Crime Watch, in attendance regarding just update to council. So welcome, both of you. You just push that button on the mic, John, and then I can turn it on. And then, there you go, welcome.
Okay,
The
good morning.
floor is yours, yeah, good morning.
Your worship, city councilors. We're here today just to inform you about the South Peace Crime Prevention Association, give you an update on the programs that the association is involved with, and some, you know, possible things that the association can be involved with moving forward. There's been a great deal of attention in the community over the last several months regarding the safety of our citizens and their property. The chamber had their forum back last year, I believe in September, October. We attended that event. We reached out to the chamber, to the city, the regional district directors, and you know, looked at what we could do to help and move forward. So our association, since its inception in 1993, has worked with the local RCMP detachment. The purpose of our group is to oversee programs that come under our umbrella, provide resources, funding, training, and fill any other needs that they may have. We're a local organization that helps provide with boots on the ground to assist in reducing crime in the community, both within the city of Dawson Creek and in the surrounding rural areas. Our membership is active with the Rural Crime Watch, and since November we've been reorganizing the Citizens on Patrol within the city. The Rural Crime Watch covers the areas of Toms Lake, Pouce Coupe, Rolla, Doe River, Kilkerran, Besborough, and just in the process of getting the Aris Cut Bank group back up and running again. These groups, they number about 230 volunteers out in the rural area. Some of them are very active and some are passive. They display signage in their area and they provide additional eyes and ears for the detachment. Some of the groups actually actively patrol within their regions and are in constant touch with the detachment members while they're out on their patrols. So the Citizens on Patrol group here in Dawson Creek, prior to and with the onset of COVID, the COPS program was struggling. November of 2022, we began a rebuilding of this program. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of resources here in British Columbia. We don't have a provincial Citizens on Patrol organization. And in 2022, we also lost our provincial crime prevention group. So we did reach out to the Alberta Provincial Citizens on Patrol Association. We met with their president, and their group was kind enough to share training resources with us. In November and December, we had monthly meetings and training sessions with our volunteers. The detachment assigned a liaison member for the group. The Dawson Creek Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in reaching out to the businesses and raise funds to set up the kits that our volunteers would use for their patrols in the city. Our COPS group is equipped with up-to-date technology to assist in their patrols, both with the use of dash cams for their vehicles and access to a Alberta Citizens on Patrol Association patrol app. Each time the volunteers go out on a patrol, they document their activity on a log sheet. They call into the police dispatch so that the on-shift members are aware that we have vehicles on the road. When possible, prior to the commencement of the COPS patrol, the volunteers attend at the detachment to talk to the on-shift members just to see if there's anything that's specific for that evening's patrols that they can deal with. Our number one priority, both with our COPS and our Rural Crime Watch programs, is always the safety of our volunteers. And to that end, we would never send our volunteers out on patrols until we felt that everything was in place to achieve this. So that's where the training was key. Also, our association provides liability insurance for our groups so that they have that. So January of 2023 was the first time in nearly 6 years that Citizens on Patrol were out doing active patrols. And so it's pretty impressive for the first quarter, so January, February, March, these people have donated 166 hours. They've logged 1,187 kilometers in patrolling within the city. They've recorded on their log sheets 19 different incidents. And of these 19 incidents, 3 of them were escalated up to the police so that they could take action on it. So when possible, the COPS group was meeting monthly at the Dawson Creek Detachment. After our March meeting with 20 people present, we found that we'd outgrown the available meeting space in the detachment, and we'll be moving our meetings back to the Kiwanis Performing Arts Center. The Dawson Creek Detachment also added a second liaison member last month, and this member brings with them experience in working with the Red Deer COPS program. This month, for both our COPS and Rural Crime Watch programs, we're looking how we can utilize a program that we have that's the One Call Now. And so with this, we can get information from the detachment out to our volunteers quickly with more up-to-date and current information. We know that there's a lot of attention that's been focused on issues with crime and with our justice system, and we know that decisions are made far from us and without our ability to quickly or directly influence decisions about the justice system. We as a group encourage our citizens and our local governments to advocate for change, but in the meantime, there are actions that we can take to combat the prevalence of crime in our community. If all we do is we dwell on the negatives and not support our frontline workers who are tasked to deal daily with fallout from social and criminal behavior, things in our community just aren't going to change. So the South Peace Crime Prevention Association and its former members, groups like Block Parents, Vandal Watch, Rural Crime Watch, Range Patrol, were all groups that were made up of volunteers who worked with our local law enforcement and first responders to make our community a better and safer place. So what can be done over and above the proactive patrols by our volunteers in both our COPS and our Rural Crime Watch? Well, the big thing that we need is growth. We need our groups to have more volunteers come forward and help. With an increase in our volunteer base, we can expand our abilities to include things like education. So the majority of stolen vehicles in our region are crimes of opportunity, where the vehicle is either left unlocked and the keys are available. Property crime is another one that includes theft from vehicles and another crime of opportunity, especially where valuables are left out in plain sight, unsecured, or if the vehicle's left unlocked. Police are continually locating stolen property, but with no signs of identification are unable to seize them and return them back to their rightful owners. So property identification seminars could be held to encourage and show people how to place identifying marks on property and maintain records of serial numbers. Did you know that on Facebook here in Dawson Creek, there's a Dawson Creek Neighborhood Watch page, and it has 869 members. Can you imagine if we had an organized block parent or block watch program in the city that would access not only the 250 existing volunteers we have, but if we tagged into those 869 people, how those volunteers could assist the police in solving and deterring crime? Also, we lost our directors for the Northern Crime Stoppers Board. And so both Dawson Creek and Fort St. John don't have anybody sitting on that board. A little update on that, we do know that there are two individuals, one from Fort St. John and one from Dawson Creek, that have put their name forward and are in the process of being vetted out by the Crime Stoppers Board. So if we have these local people, we can have more local input as to how this program functions within our area. And the last thing is sustainable funding. At present, our association depends on 2 fundraising events a year, plus a grant from the regional district to operate. Additional funds would help us enable to send our volunteers away to obtain training and learn of new and innovative programs that can be adapted to our community. So that's basically who we are and what we're doing, and we would be happy to answer any questions that your worship or council has for us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Art. Thank you very much for coming in and giving us a presentation. It's nice to hear this, and and a bigger thank you to what you guys do day in and day out and giving back and trying to make it a better place. It's definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and I know the Rural Crime Watch. I hear a lot of it sitting on the regional district is very successful, and so yeah, it's just nice to see, and so thank you both. So I'll open it up to Councilor Earl.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you both for coming to visit with us. And I guess please extend to your many volunteers our appreciation. So a couple questions. I'm sure my colleagues have some as well. I guess I'm very appreciative of the Alberta COPS organizations for helping you with resources, but obviously it's distressing to hear that the program has fallen down at a provincial level in British Columbia. So what is required to get that not that not to not appreciate what we get from our neighbors, but certainly there is a border there, and that does require different considerations. What is it, just a lack of resources and will, or is?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, basically, we lost what was a provincial group, was the Crime Prevention Association, and it ran for years in BC. Mm-hmm. In talking to the local detachment, community policing is becoming more of a priority again with E-Division, which is the province of British Columbia for the RCMP, and they're starting to roll out more and more programs. In their materials, they even mention Rural Crime Watch, and Rural Crime Watch was a program that we borrowed from Alberta over 30 years ago, and we adapted it within this area. We're reaching out to some of the other Citizens on Patrol groups. There's not a lot of them around here. There's one in Prince George, I believe one in Williams Lake. We are recognized by the Canadian Citizens on Patrol group. Their treasurer actually resides in Nanaimo. So it's a matter of trying to network these groups and get them together and see what we can do, to tailor it more to BC. Like I said, we appreciate what Alberta does for us, but, made in BC solution might be better sometimes.
Yes. And second question, and this just occurred to me as I was reading your letter during over the last few days. So currently, volunteer firefighters and search and rescue people get tax credit, as they can claim that back on their taxes. I saw the kilometers driven and the hours spent, I presume that's coming out of volunteers' own pockets if you don't have funding for various things. And I guess that the volunteer tax credit we extend to firefighters and search and rescue people wouldn't be available to some people. I'm just thinking for future things we can potentially advocate to the province for to help you show your appreciation to your volunteers or give them a little perk for having put their time in. Is that, but I assume I'm correct in the assessment that they're not eligible for that tax credit currently?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Well, that's something for us to look into. Well, yes, thank you very much once again. And when you guys are moving over back into K-PAC, are you having to pay to rent those rooms?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so it might be worthwhile for us to help you find a sponsor for that, if, because, you know, it's as much as I appreciate and respect and value the work you're doing, I don't think people should be going out of their own pockets to do this kind of work either. That's no way to say thank you for this kind of work. So thank you once again, and we'll touch base later. I'm probably going to reach out to you simply because I know we have a panel coming up for NCLGA, which is going to be here in May, and the topic of that panel is going to be community safety. So I may want to pick your brain on that as far as getting some insight from you about how to inform that discussion. But thank you once again.
Thank you, Councillor L. Any other councillors? Oh, go ahead, Art.
I'd just like to add on behalf of the Rural Crime Watch, I just compiled the quarter stats, the first quarter stats for January to March for the Toms Lake area, and we hit the highest patrolled kilometers that we've ever done. Despite the cold winter and everything else, it was 3,100 and some, and as was alluded to, that's private money for gas, time, and vehicle, and your country roads are not city roads. So it is a personal commitment that our members feel that they'll do their part for keeping the area safe. And it would be nice if there was some incentive that could be recognized, but as you alluded to earlier, it's search and rescue, I think, has a more structured, as do the volunteer fire departments, as far as documenting their time put in. We do log, excuse me, we do register with the detachment when we go out, and we log our hours, but I don't know how much more rigid it would have to be to get that acceptable for a taxation break.
Thank you, Art. Any other councillors? Any questions? I had a couple questions. Thanks, Councillor Earl, for bringing those up. They were in my list as well. The one about the provincial, is there anything we can do to help, with British Columbia getting to, I think the crime and where we sit is BC-wide, and they realize there's a problem, and it is kind of shocking that we use an Alberta program, which, it's great that they have it, and it doesn't surprise me that they have it. So, but is there anything that we can do directly to advocate or to help or to push to get, more of what you need in British Columbia?
Maybe when you're attending the regional and provincial municipal meetings that you go to, it's something that can be shared. It was a volunteer group, it was a society, so, how you revive that or whether that's something that maybe comes through the Solicitor General to get that up and going. Alberta is way more structured that way than what we are here in BC, but it was interesting in most of the training materials that we did get from Alberta, they were kind of manuals that we already had in BC back from earlier times. So I mean, things haven't changed in the process, the training, and the way that you deal with these crime prevention programs. So, it's probably just networking out and reaching out and saying, hey, why don't we have this in BC? Like, why are we lagging behind? So.
Okay, perfect. We can do that for sure. And then another one too, just on our last council meeting, we had a motion passed just to look into, we discussed before about some block watch and crime prevention things and some different programs that we could bring to the city. When our staff are out doing the research on that, are they able to contact you directly, John, or is there somebody that could kind of help guide us or work with us on areas that maybe we could help a little bit more?
Sure, we're more than happy to work with the city, regional district, or whatever. I mean, it's basically, like I said, I mean, with the volunteers and everything, it's something that it stretches over so many issues. I mean, it's not just it's the crime; it's the social issues. There's so many things that are involved in this you know, the solution isn't just one thing fits all. It's, you know, we have to look at a broad spectrum of things.
Yeah, for sure. Understand that. And then also too, like you said, that Facebook group, like that Block Watch, like it would be, you know, to organize something like that to get it, you know, more where there's signs that you can put out on your lawn and just show like that the community's behind this and we're all here to make a difference. And like you said, get more people involved, right?
Well, that's right. And when you have neighbors looking out for neighbors, that just makes the community safer.
Yes, for sure. And then just, is there like a direct ask to us? I know you're just giving us a presentation to get an update, but is there like a, you know, something that, you know, you would like that the city could directly help that would?
So when we reviewed, and we were fortunate enough that that the COPS program and both Rural Crime Watch keep fairly detailed minutes, and they've had the minutes almost from their inception. One of the things that is very evident is that the reason that these things kind of fell to the wayside or weren't as active is that they lack leadership. And the leadership usually comes from the detachment. But when you're looking at you know, having a crime prevention coordinator who's a member and spending, you know, the 90 or more thousand that it would cost the city to have that, you know, so many of these things have been delegated to civilian positions, you know, whether it be a court liaison or an exhibit custodian. And, you know, maybe that's something that we look at between the city and the regional district and the Crime Prevention Association, is that if there was a paid person in the detachment to provide that leadership and to, you know, look at how they go out, get the resources and the training and those types of things. Because without, you know, that leadership, you know, as good as the volunteers are, they still kind of flounder. So it's something that, you know, maybe we can look at moving down the road is having those meetings.
Okay. And I think, I think too, like also with getting the new staff sergeant here too, I think once he's in place, like we can have those meetings and see like what would help and work together and then.
Exactly. 'Cause I mean, he's the person that's going to be looking at the priorities for the detachment, and I'm sure that, you know, the crime prevention, community policing initiatives are going to be, you know, towards the top of his list. So.
Yeah, yeah. I met with him last week. I was going to give an update later, but he's, yeah, he's very well aware of what he's coming to, and he's very excited about, you know, contributing and helping, and doesn't come here thinking he has all the answers either. He wants to learn and, you know, work with us to make it a better community. So, and safer. I mean, Councillor Parslow.
The Sudeten Hall, you probably could use that hall for no charge. I mean, it seems, I'm disturbed that you have to pay to have a meeting. So Alex Reshny is the president, and I would suggest if that's an option you might want to explore.
Okay.
It's kind of handy, a good parking lot. It's in good shape now, so I just offer. I can't offer it to you, but I would suggest you talk to Alex. And we're having a meeting tomorrow, so if you could put a phone call in today or tomorrow, it might be resolved by tomorrow night.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Was there any other? Oh, go ahead, Art.
I'd just like to add something on behalf of the Southeast Crime Prevention, and a bit of a heads up. The term restorative justice has come up more often, and because our court systems don't seem to be working. So there is something tentative in the works that we're looking at, and this is an initiative through Southeast Crime Prevention, but it's a massive undertaking to get it going again. It was going previously, about 10, 12 years ago. It was successful, but it required a concerted effort by everybody. It's done through the RCMP, so it's something just a heads up on it that it's being looked at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Art. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say thank you to yourselves and your members. I appreciate all the volunteer time, and I appreciate the idea of working hand in hand with our frontline workers. I think that is a good positive way for us to move together in partnership. And just want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Just a word about restorative justice. I met with the previous staff sergeant and a couple of other people in the community about getting that back here. I believe Fort St. John they've stopped doing that now. Okay. Seems when you have a change of personnel, right? Yep. But I agree completely. What I've heard about it and experienced it, it's very effective. But it was used a lot in not just RCMP, but in the public school system as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that it can be a powerful tool. And there's, I think, again, it just takes leadership to start that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Anyone else? I as well want to thank both of you for coming in and all the members. And, I think for me, what makes Dawson such a great place is people just like yourselves that give back and truly just want to make our community a better place. So, just, a big thank you to you and to all the members. And moving forward, I look forward to building the relationships, and I know this council does as well. And I know some councils are involved in the COPS program and want to do more and give back. So we're definitely here for those reasons. And if there's some way we can help, just please reach out, and we'll do what we can on our end to to help. So yeah, so just thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, do you want to? Oh, Councillor Earl did.
Sorry.
Snuck in the last
And just
minute.
as you were saying that, it occurred to me to ask, I know kind of one of the commitments of many of the people that ran for office in the last election was to build out the communications piece around the city's engagement with organizations throughout the city. Do we have, or is it, have we in the past had a council liaison for the Crime Prevention Association? Would that be something that's of use? I know we have a couple councillors who are volunteers with COPS, but just looking to formalize the relationship and keep that line of communication open.
And I think so. I mean, we started with some meetings when we looked at revamping the COPS program, and I think it'd be beneficial that, if somebody from council, and I mean, we are fortunate enough to have a couple of councillors involved in the COPS program, but, definitely moving forward, it's something that we're not going to do alone, and so, we've had positive response from the regional district and from your worship and from council. So definitely something that, maybe we need to look at, some sort of a committee moving forward, involving both the police, the Crime Prevention Association, and our levels of government locally.
I think that would be great. How often are your meetings? Are they monthly or
Yes.
monthly?
The first Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock at the detachment.
So if a council wanted to sit on that, that's welcome. Okay.
We've recently invited Fish and Wildlife to attend now because they work a lot with out in the rural areas. So we're bringing them on board more. So not that we excluded them, but just we thought, well, the more people in on this, the better.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Next order of business is 3 late items. No late items. 4, new councillor business. 4.1, council liaison report from Councillor Apollonio regarding the Dawson Creek Public Library. Councillor Apollonio couldn't be here today just for some work reasons and some commitments he couldn't get out. So there's a report attached that has a lot of information on the public library. A couple that I'll touch on for him. There's a plant fundraising sale going on April 21st, 22nd. And then also a Pinterest craft afternoon, April 29th, I noticed on there. So I'm sure they're very active on social media, the library. So if there's more information you need, it would have that on there. And then I also seen that there was a new social media person, Emily Morris. So just wanted to point those out and thank Councillor Apollonio for the update. Did anybody else have any questions on 4.1? No? 4.2, we have memo from Councillor McDonald regarding RCMP downloading of cost overruns to municipalities. Do you want to? Yeah, just speak to it, or if you were going to make a motion to it.
So thank you, Worship. Recently, with the federal government's 2023 budget, in their negotiations with the federal RCMP, they made the choice to download cost overruns from the RCMP program from the years 2017 to 2021 onto local municipalities without any funding help, and was brought to our attention through the FCM, the Federal Coalition of Municipalities, which we are members of, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, that it would be in our benefit just to send a letter to the federal government reminding them that we deserve to have a voice in those negotiations, and these extraordinary one-time costs that are being downloaded upon us as municipal governments are hard to take. It's an equation of 2.5% of our annual budget we're being asked to pick up without any financial support from them. They negotiate essentially with municipal money on our behalf for RCMP, and I look at this as, if we sent out a contract for roads or anything else, and we sign into a contract, and 6 years later, said contractor comes back at us and says, "Ooh, my costs were actually a lot more. I'd like to retroactively charge you for those overrun costs." Right? It's not fair. It's not easy for us on a very tight budget to accept these costs. And I think just in the future, what the FCM is asking for is that they just take into a little more account the municipal's opinions and thoughts on these programs. And as for the memo, right, therefore be it resolved that the City of Dawson Creek joins the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in calling on the federal government to commit to ensuring that local governments are meaningfully consulted, fully informed, and at the table on issues related to policing costs, given the municipal role in keeping our communities safe. And be it further resolved that the City of Dawson Creek conveys its support in writing to local members of Parliament. So just asking that we send a letter to our local MP, just saying, we agree with RCMP being paid.
I'm just assuming the last part was the motion, right? So I just will want a seconder before we talk anymore about
sorry.
it. So, Councillor Earl, you can go ahead now.
Sorry.
That's right.
I agree the RCMP were underpaid in the last few years, but that's not our negotiations. That's the federal government's negotiations, and they deserve to pick up some of that bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Is there any other discussion on this? Councillor Parslow. I guess just before Councillor Parslow speaks to it too, we are dealing with this again, I think 7.2, I did get an email sent to me about all this, so it was, I was unaware of it going forward. Now that I've done more research, I realize that we were aware of it, but it was just the whole email and way it was sent to myself, and just to myself, caught me off guard a lot too, and I agree with a lot with what you said. So, Councillor Parslow, sorry.
Yes, I'm just referring to the costs related to negotiated compensation for RCMP officers. I believe over the years of this negotiation, through our staff, we were advised to budget for salary increases. I'm not certain where that advice came from. It was certainly presented to us. It might have been UBCM, it might have been FCM. So I thought we were kept informed. The dynamics in the time period referenced in this correspondence, the onset, the RCMP were the third highest paid police officers in the country. At the time of the culmination of this, they were the 90th. There's about 108 different police forces in Canada. Of those, the vast majority of those police forces are municipal police forces. So it is municipal governments and city governments, large city governments, who have negotiated settlements that have led to the pattern of compensation. So it seems ironic that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, whose very members have basically agreed to settlements that have led to this compensation regime, are now complaining about it. We were warned that it was going to happen. The municipal governments and city governments agreed to all this compensation, which I think is justified, by the way. Of course, in policing is provincial forces in Ontario and Quebec and Newfoundland. And so there were 3 provincial governments that established pay regimes for their provincial police forces. Of the remaining, let's say, 90 others, it was municipal and city. So I'm open to being corrected, of course, but I believe our finance officers advised us over the years about what was happening. They were told about it. They budgeted for it. There was going to be a fairly hefty pay increase, and through their diligence, we cushioned ourselves for this and budgeted for it accordingly. So I just find it ironic that the FCM, whose very members orchestrated the pay regimes across Canada, are now saying for the federal employees, the RCMP, who's employed by the federal government, that they should have a say. It also seems ironic as well that in our, let's talk about our firefighters. Within this province, we know that the pay regime is established for firefighters basically between negotiations that occur in the Vancouver area, and then that becomes the pattern. So is UBCM going to want to sit at the table for the city of Vancouver so that all the other municipalities that are affected by the negotiations have a say? Just a speculative, cynical thought perhaps, but anyway, I won't be supporting this.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. I don't know, Terry, did you want to add anything to council? Because I know that the city was aware of this through the process with my conversations with you and Kevin.
So through your worship, yes. So I came in, halfway through, but I do know I've seen quite a bit of correspondence, and I do believe last year, probably around April, they had sent out a notice with the low and the high expected on the retro pay. So low, I think, was 619,000 for us. High was 648. So last year, I accrued the difference. So $648,000 has been accrued to pay the bill for this retro pay. So, like Councillor Parslow alluded to, it was known. It has been budgeted for. So we do have it. It's already been expensed. However, I do understand where Councillor McDonald is coming from. It is a big bill.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship. And Terry's point, yeah, I do recall a couple times it was mentioned to us by her and perhaps her predecessor to expect it. Councillor McDonald's frustration, though, and I do think it's reflective of a status quo which really doesn't work for rural municipalities. and I understand there are many municipalities whose, scale of economy, they can afford a local police force, or it's done at a provincial level in some areas, but the reality of the situation, when you look at how the RCMP as a federal forces funding is broken out, I think it's about 25% federal, 25% provincial, and then the other 50% is borne by municipalities like ours, like Fort St. John, like Prince George, and in the spirit of fairness, do we have 50% of the say over how these contracts are negotiated, over how these organizations are administered, over how these bureaucracies are managed and allowed to grow? We don't, and I think the federal government's comfort in entering into these negotiations in this fashion for retro pay or what have you is reflective of a lack of thoughtfulness around the needs of rural communities and how we are, number one, able to absorb these costs, and two, once again, we're not, even though we're footing a significant portion of the bill, we're not getting any more say in how these organizations are managed, how any of this is rolled out to our community. So I'm fine in supporting the motion for no other reason than to register my discontent with the status quo and how the federal government has managed these negotiations. I mean, telling us we're taking liberties on your behalf is still taking liberties on our behalf.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Any other discussion? No? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Councillor Parslow is against. Next, we have 4.3 memo from Councillor McDonald regarding naming rights for the city facilities. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make a proposed motion that city staff be directed to investigate and design a naming rights type of sponsorship model for the city's appropriate facilities, including but not limited to the Memorial Arena.
Thank you. To have a second. Councillor Sudnick, would you like to speak to it?
I just, we're facing facilities that are aging quickly on us. We're going to need funds to maintain said facilities. We also have some of the highest user fees in our region for usage of our facilities, and this could be a way to help alleviate some of those costs put on our youth programs throughout the community, whether it be, soccer, baseball, hockey, judo, anything like that. Just a request for another way of creating funds for the city and our facilities.
I agree. Thank you for bringing this forward. Any other discussion or questions? Councillor Earl?
Just a question too. Currently, we have a third-party advertising agreement for, is it Kinney Memorial, where someone sells the advertising and we get a cut of that. Obviously, this might cause them, they might want this to be included in a contract, or I assume the model would be similar, where you put a portion out for sale, or a third party goes and solicits advertising and the city would get a portion of it to offset operating costs.
I think I looked at that one as well. I know it's for on the boards in the
the rink boards and
arenas, so
stuff.
the city does get a percentage. I think this is more directed at naming rights for the facilities and having staff come back to us. So there might be, at that point, staff might come back and say, we think there's a third-party company that does this. We can look at that. I don't know if you have to add to that, Kevin.
Yeah, through your worship, it's just what I was gonna say is if approved by council, we'll look at all those different possible scenarios and what might work, whether it's, like you say, a third party, very similar to what we do with the board advertising or something other than that, but that'll be part of the investigation.
Yeah, and then I guess it might be worth for those cities that already have, like Lakota Agriplex, like the, Ken Boric Aquatic Center, I think those were sold as one-time naming rights things and will exist in perpetuity. So we figure out which of those are off the books. And one last thing to keep an eye obviously when it comes to city facilities like the Calvin Crook Center, like the curling rink that are managed by nonprofits, I'd imagine if naming rights are now an option, they're going to want first crack at selling them to benefit their organizations as opposed to having it go back to the city as an intermediary. So
Yeah, so
something to
through
be
your worship,
mindful of. I don't, I don't have any thoughts beyond that, but just thinking of the various ways this would roll out, I'm sure that would be a consideration.
Yeah, through your worship, I think the first thing that, again, if it's approved by council, is go away, do a bit of work, come back, and then, again, probably the first thing would be some policy development around the various scenarios that we have, so we think through those different options.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I appreciate this memo as well. Anything that helps us deal with our fiscal issues is welcome by myself. I just wanted to, I did talk to my colleague last night about this. The Memorial Arena, I just want us to be sensitive to the fact about the name of the Memorial Arena. And I just think we need to collaborate with veterans and others for whom the word Memorial Arena has some significance. And I'd hate to see a renaming that would say something like the Coca-Cola Memorial Arena. What are we memorializing? The Coca-Cola product or the veterans? So I think we need to be very careful about that naming. I don't think there's much scope actually in the community for, I appreciate that we should look at this, but many of the facilities I know already have names for, and I was not aware that like the Ken Boric isn't that in perpetuity? It is, thank you. Did you say that? Okay. Many of them are in perpetuity. Yeah. But I don't believe we should leave any stone unturned. And as we were sharing last night, the big one is the Memorial Arena. But that's the one that the naming has to be very sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. All right, any other discussion? No? All right. Thank you for putting this one forward. I will call it to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business is 5, adoption of minutes. 5.1, minutes of the regular meeting of council from March 27th, 2023 for adoption. Councillor Sudnick, Councillor Kemp. I will call that to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. Any business arising? No. 7, correspondence. 7.1, we have a letter from Jen Ford, President, Union of BC Municipalities, dated March 24th, 2023, regarding the Ministry of Housing request for inventory of municipal land potentially available for affordable housing. If nobody's jumping forward, I'll make a motion to receive this for information. Second, Councillor Earl. Any discussion on receiving it for information? Councillor Parslow?
Well, I was expecting us to agree to this request. Pardon?
Sorry, I was just saying there is an ask in there.
Yeah, there is an ask in this.
I guess-
So are we de facto closing our eyes to this ask? Was that the intention?
Well, I guess I'll speak a little bit why nobody jumped on making a motion right away, but I did, for information, is just, there's been some other facilities that we've, done in partnership in the municipality with the provincial government that haven't maybe worked out the way we thought they were or intended, and I have a feeling that this is about them wanting to know where there's more land available for certain things, and I'm not saying that I'm against looking at, new facilities for this area, but I definitely want some clearer transparency moving forward, and I'm all about facilities that benefit residents of Dawson Creek and surrounding areas, but I'm not, in favor of facilities that are for a larger area. I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess in one talking to this for information is the one building that we have downtown that there is some, we're looking for some clarification on what it was originally intended for and what it is now. And Kevin has been trying to gather as much information on that as he can, and he's having troubles with that. So, we're not saying that we're against it. We're just not willing to send I figured to receive for information. So I guess we could, call that to vote and do something different if you choose to. Councillor Earl.
Yeah, I mean, one thing occurred to me in reading this letter is it seemed, it's very kind of broad and sweeping, but it focuses around affordable housing, and it strikes me that, do we have some pinch points here in the community around affordable housing? Certainly. I think seniors housing similarly needs some help, but we don't have the same kind of issues around affordability that they do in, say, the Lower Mainland or parts of the island or parts of BC. And it just struck me that this letter was indicating kind of a cookie cutter approach to housing development. I mean, to his worship's point about the existing facility we've partnered with BC Housing on, or that we'd entered into an agreement with BC Housing on, and how maybe we'd like some more, I guess the word you used was transparency, but a better understanding of what the intent of these facilities are before we blow open the doors and offer city land. Because if they show up asking for, okay, which city-owned land would be appropriate for seniors housing, I have absolutely no problem giving them that list specific to that, which would be for affordable or supportive housing for people who are at risk of homelessness. That's a different conversation with different considerations. And once again, those considerations are certainly informed by how the last facility we worked with them on has rolled out in the community. So, I'm not opposed to providing them with a list if we want to consider, but I think for their part, they need to provide some more specificity around what exactly they're looking for. If this is just a matter of, condos cost $1 million in Vancouver, and that's the problem we're trying to address, well, that's not, I think, something we need to spend a lot of time on because it's not an issue we deal with here. If it has to do with the other things, then let's have that conversation, but just a generic list of land available for them to play with isn't my idea of a good way to start this conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. I guess, too, before we get into discussion, this is just received for information, so this is just discussion around information, not about other things. Correct, Brenda? Yes. Yeah, okay. Councillor Parslow.
Well, I think we should, in the sake of expediency, put this to vote, and if it's defeated, we can then have a discussion.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. All right, any other discussion on receiving for information? No? Okay, I will call this to vote. Vote is closed, and it was defeated, so 4 against, Councillor Sudnick, Councillor Earl, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Parslow against, so look for a new motion. Councillor Parslow.
I would like to move that we accede to this request for information on municipal land that's potentially available for housing.
I have a second. Councillor Sudnick.
I can speak to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not, what Councillor Earl was saying, I agree with. I'm not particularly surprised with the current issue. I think that, to me, was to be expected. And what happens there parallels what happens in Prince George and Fort St. John, two places I do know about, okay? So I'm not uptight about that. But the point is, we do, for many people, affordability is an issue. We have to recognize that there's a lot of people living in this community that many of the rental units are beyond their capacity. So affordable housing is a necessity here. And I don't think we should prevent us being able to avail any opportunities that bring affordable housing to this community. But as I said earlier, I completely agree with what Councillor Earl said as well, that we should be good transparency, good in collaborative discussions, not something that we're surprised about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to point out too, in this letter, it says providing a list to the ministry creates no obligation on behalf of the province or the local government to take any further action. The purpose at this point is to get a sense of public land available for housing and understand which municipalities might be interested down the road in partnerships to create more affordable housing in their communities. I think us getting ahead of this and getting a true understanding of where the community would like to see affordable housing builds done now, instead of it just being forced on us later, just makes sense for us to get ahead of the game, create a list, work in partnership, right? It just makes a lot more sense to me than just saying no and putting it on them, and then they'll just come in and do whatever they damn well please, as they've shown us they are willing to do.
Yeah, part of it, yes, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, so the motion is clear, is just to provide them with information on land that we have available for affordable housing. All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. I'm going to call a 10-minute recess. Council meeting for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 back to order. Our next order of business was 7.2. We have a letter from Tala DeCaleb, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Public Safety Canada, dated March 29th, 2023, regards the request for letter of intent for payment of RCMP retroactive salary costs. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. Before we make a motion on this, just a question to our financial officer. What would you prefer? Pay in one lump, or would you prefer to see it spread out?
Through your worship, I was hoping you'd ask. I personally would prefer to just pay it out. Like I said earlier, it's been accrued, it's been expensed in prior years, so I would rather just get it off the books in 2022 than carry it over. I mean, we could pay, half and invest some, but in order to get the rates to make a good return, you need, at least $5 million. So I would prefer to just pay it.
Thank you, Terry. Councillor McDonald?
So, being with that, I'd like to make a motion that council advise our chief financial officer to go ahead and pay this this bill in one lump sum and get it off our books.
Second, Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? All right. I will call this to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. Next order of business is 7.3. We have a letter from Ronalda Washington, President, South Peace Historic Society, dated March 30th, 2023, regarding a request for a letter of support. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move that we approve this request and issue a letter of support for this application.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Second, Councillor Sudnick. Any discussion? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed, and it's carried. I think it was carried, it flashed pretty quick. Next order of business, 7.4, we have a letter from Duncan Malkinson, Executive Director, Dawson Creek Art Gallery, dated March 30th, 2023, regarding a request for letter of support. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship. I move that we grant the petitioner's request for a letter of support.
Thank you. Second. Councillor McDonald, any discussion? I'll call that to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business is 8 reports. We have 8.1, report number 23-052 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding Council Code of Conduct Policy. Councillor Kempf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that report number 23-052 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding Council Code of Conduct Policy be received. Further, that Council rescind the current Council Code of Conduct Policy and approve the updated Code of Conduct Policy as presented within report number 23-52 pending the required 30-day review period.
Second. Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? Councillor Parslow.
Well, I was wondering if Councillor Earl made some comment earlier this meeting that he had some reflections on this code of conduct. What particular items he was referring to?
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. I don't know if I'm going to, Councillor Earl, let you speak to it only 'cause
I'm all good, Councillor Parslow. I was speaking in jest. I think that can be an informal agreement between all of us moving forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next is 8.2. We have report number 23-054 from the Capital Project Manager regarding invitation to tender 2023-07-2023 Capital Roadworks Program, Camarlo Subdivision Phase 2. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move the recommendation that report number 23-054 from the Capital Projects Manager regarding 2023 Capital Roadworks Program, Camarlo Subdivision Phase 2 be received. Further, that Council award the 2023 Capital Roadworks Program, Camarlo Subdivision Phase 2 to Swamp Donkey Oilfield Incorporated for the tendered price of $1,631,879.70 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? Just had one question maybe to Kevin or Devin. Just with these quotes starting to come in these tenders, are we noticing a big increase or higher than were expecting, or is it just wondering with like inflation and where things are? Devin?
Yeah, through your worship, I think the pricing is coming in exactly kind of where we're expecting, which is good news. There is some things that are coming a little bit more. For example, street lighting this year from last year is up 130%. So as a result, we've gone and procured some street lighting for the next few years with some of the budget that we have, just so that we can make sure we get on top of that. But these prices, luckily, our budgets are set with some contingency in place, and we're seeing that contingency still in place. So that's good news.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, I will call this to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 8.3, report number 23-055 from the Capital Project Manager regarding the request for quotation 2023-05 asphalt maintenance program. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to recommend that report number 23-055 from the Capital Projects Manager regarding request for quotations 2023-05 asphalt maintenance program be received. Further, the council award request for quotations 2023-05 to Nelson Sand and Gravel Limited for a 2-year term based on the unit prices included in their bid, up to the maximum approved by council in the budget.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick? Any discussion? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. Next, we have 8.4, report number 23-057 from the corporate officer regarding the 2023 policy review. Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 23-053 from the corporate officer regarding 2023 policy review be received. Further, that the 19 policies proposed by council be scheduled for review over the next 5 regular council meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald? Any discussion? Councillor Parslow?
I'm going to raise this issue, if with your indulgence. Don't think it would be too big a stretch. I did raise when I submitted some stuff, some procedural, council procedural matters, which we did have a chat about. The mayor was present. When do you propose bringing those forward for discussion?
Through your worship, the procedural questions that you had brought forward relate to the council procedure bylaw. So anything that you would wish changed in that bylaw will need a separate motion. So you could bring that forward through new business at any council meeting. This is specific to the policies.
I had thought I'd brought them forward.
But they would need a motion adopted by all of council
Yes.
before staff was directed on that.
So you want me to bring them forward in a future agenda rather than you?
Yeah, it would need to be a memo that you would put forward to an agenda.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the memo I sent you?
I would have to look into that. Yeah,
Save me searching, thank you.
I will, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Any other discussion? No? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 9 bylaws, 9.1, 2023-0, or 2023 to 2027 financial plan bylaw, number 4552, 2023 for consideration of adoption. Anybody? Well, I guess I'll just need anybody like to, Councillor Earl? Second. Councillor Kemp, I'll call that to vote. Oh, were you wanting to speak to that, Councillor Parslow? Or, no, okay,
I'll have comments to our finance officer privately.
okay. Okay. I can see her jumping up and down over there, so.
Ominous.
We're good? The vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 9.2, report number 23-051 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding Growing Communities Capital Reserve Fund bylaw number 4553, 2023 for consideration of first 3 readings. Councillor Parslow, or was that from last time?
Well, I don't mind moving this, if that's okay. That report number 23-051 from the CFO, Regrowing Communities Capital Reserve Fund bylaw number 4553, 2023 be received. Further, the Growing Communities Capital Reserve Fund bylaw number 4553, 2023 be given first 3 readings.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Second, Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? I will call this to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business is 10 mayor's business. 10.1 is mayor's update. One had a regional crime meeting. This was last week with myself, Kevin, And we had the CAO, Sean from Peace River Regional District, as long as Chair Hebert there, and MLA Mike Bernier there as well. So we just had a meeting to discuss, a lot of the issues and, our, just with the crime in the community, the area, moving forward. Just really get on the same page, find out what we can do to make a difference and how we can, I think we've shown that we're taking crime seriously and we want to help in the community. So it's just about getting more, we're on the same page, but it was just more of having a meeting. I know we've sent some letters to the Attorney General and to Minister Farnsworth, and, maybe weren't exactly excited about some of the responses, so we brought that up with MLA Bernier as well, and just had a real open dialogue discussion about all of that and new things and areas that we're working on, and just continuing really to be on the same page as we're moving forward. We're always discussing and talking about things. So as well, we had a meeting with MP Bob Zimmer last week as well, and that was just a meeting really for some council to meet him that haven't met him before, and he came in and it was another we talked about a lot of different things, but the majority of the meeting was about crime as well, about the catch and release policy, about just some of the struggles that we find like our RCMP and the system are facing. So we just had some good dialogue around that as well, and just kind of keep pushing to get it in the right direction where we feel, and it looks like there is changes coming, so just continue to put, have those conversations and put as much pressure on, and if there's new ways that we can learn things to do things, and then we're looking at that as well. So well, Ovintiv tour, we had a Ovintiv tour last, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but anyways, with councillors, most of council and mayor were there, and Kevin. It's got a tour of the center. I just wanted to, one, thank everybody for taking the time to go there. It was an amazing time to spend together, but also just the staff of the Ovintiv Center, and to see what goes on behind the scenes was very eye-opening. They have an amazing team down there. I've always seen it, that they work together. They're very much about the growth of the community moving forward. So it was just nice to meet with them. We met, Tyler, who looks after like the HVAC system, and just his knowledge and passion for what he does just blew me away. Like how how he was, and just it was so educational to see all the things that the ins and outs, and what there's so much more that goes into it than I ever thought. So it was just amazing to see, and he's got so much education, and not even just the education, just the true passion to be there and do what's right, and and that doesn't just stop with him. He just that part of it just really blew me away. But Crystal, Judy, Alicia, Brian, Dustin, all of them just shared that same passion for each department and what they do. So they went through each department with us, gave us a tour of the facility. So yeah, I just wanted to thank them for that. Salvation Army, I met with Major Paul Blake. I actually they just moved here in October, I think, of last year, and I met his wife at the Remembrance Day ceremony last year, and then I had the opportunity to meet with Major Paul Blake last week. So just, had some discussion about, life. It was more just an introductory, get to know him, and just kind of start that relationship. So it was nice. So. And they got a lot of good things that they're working on, to help in a lot of areas. So it was nice to see that. As well, last week we went out to the Soto First Nations. All of council did. So I just wanted to thank Chief Justin Napoleon and their council out there for having us out there. And it was really just another step forward of building relationships with everybody in our whole community and region. So it's such an amazing experience to go out and meet, and especially at Soto First Nations, just to hear about the history, what they're doing, their plans. Like, it's just very exciting, and lots of great things for our region as a whole. So yeah, it was just good to meet and, really have some just dialogue and build those relationships. So it was great. So, next, the mayor's project, with Jessica Kimball. I did that, I'm going to keep saying last week because it's kind of a blur a little bit, but we went to 6 different places. So we met at Northern Lights College. We went behind the high school where they have their spa and haircutting center set up. So we got to meet with Aaron and Shauna, the 2 instructors there, got a tour of the facility, met a lot of the students there. So it's quite an amazing facility. I didn't know that's where it was, but just to see what Northern Lights College have done back there, and obviously I think the school district has some part because it's on their facility, but it's just amazing. And I think it's the 2nd year they're into it, and they had full students. So I think there was about 20 students in there. So it was just great. They got a couple competitions coming up, and Kaylee, one of the spa students, actually won the competition locally. So she's heading to Surrey in the next month for like I think it's provincial competition. So it was kind of neat. It was just nice to get out and see those facilities. Then Oak Clinic, went and met Ayla, Megan, and Emma at the Oak Creek Clinic. So, another amazing facility in this community. And, what Ayla does and brings to our area is just, it's absolutely amazing that we would have somebody of her caliber in Dawson Creek. So it's just amazing. And then, Megan and Emma worked there as well. Just great people. It was also Emma's birthday the same day, so it worked out pretty good. So, I'd like to say that was her birthday present having me there, but I don't think it was. She couldn't get me out of there quick enough. Then we went up, after that we went up to the Hillside Greenhouse, met with Dawn and her team up there. So just had a little tour of her facility, and definitely it's that time of season up there. So it was very beautiful, fresh, lots of smells. It was neat. And it was just great to get up there and meet. She's got a pretty big team too. I think there's like at least 9 or 10 of them, and a very large cat that I got to meet. Probably one of the biggest cats I've seen, but it was, it was just nice to be up there and visit. After that, went to the Black Cathedral, the tattoo facility that Kaylin Ravalli owns. So I got to meet up with Kaylin, go through it, and Chelsea, her office lady there. So just another great facility downtown Dawson Creek. It's I was actually blown away when I've known Kaylin for a long time, and she's very artistic. But to walk into her facility, I was just blown away, like how amazing the inside was, like all put together with, way above what my imagination can bring. So it was amazing. So that was great. And then finished off with a bit of a tour of House of Healing with Katie Johns. So. That was another great, another great business. There's so many, so it's, but just what she offers for our community. I think she has 3 or 4 people that work full-time in her office, doing health and wellness and healing. And she's also got a facility out front, or the front part of her business that she rents out monthly. So there's different, I think when I was there was somebody from Vancouver, and they're doing some certain workshops for a month. And just amazing. She recently moved, I think about just over a year ago. She bought a building downtown and redid that building. So it's, the work she's done in that building is just amazing too. So it's just so great to see, and just to get out and communicate with them. And, Jessica does all this on her own time. So I can't praise her enough for doing this, because it helps me get out and share our message from city and council, to people of our community, and I get to meet people that I maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet. So I just wanted to thank Jessica again for doing it. So, and then, next, sorry, Councillor Parslow, I'm talking too much. I seen you.
Just, it's nice. I enjoy listening to
Oh, okay.
I just close my eyes.
Next, I just wanted to give a shout out to the annual Sportsman Club. They had their 43rd annual gun show a couple weekends ago, and we've seen some of the numbers, but just absolutely amazing what they do. I got to go attend it a few days, so it was, it was full in there, and they had, after Saturday morning, they had more attendance there than they did the previous one 3 years ago, so for the whole weekend. So it was just an amazing event, a lot of people, and those types of things, they don't go unnoticed with us, that those things are huge for our economy, how many people it brings to our community. It just helps drive our economy and help Dawson Creek. There was so many people in town that day. Everybody benefited from it. It was just such an amazing thing, and we have so many great events that are put on by organizations, and I just want to make that a part that we recognize them for these events, because there's a lot of volunteer hours that go into putting these events on, and I couldn't imagine how much went into that one, because it was a full event with a lot of vendors, and 4,000 or 5,000 people that went through the doors. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them and a thank you. So next, I met with Staff Sergeant Rob Hughes and his wife Jen. Were in Dawson Creek last week. They were looking at housing, so they've found one. I'm pretty sure their offers have went through, so they will be up here in the next couple of months. Based on timing, but I had just a great discussion with him and his wife, really, just about life in general, and what he sees, and he's very much about he understands the issues that this area is facing, and he is ready to come in and help, and he doesn't. A very humble gentleman, and they both were they're not coming in thinking they have all the answers and they're going to solve every problem. They're coming in here because they want to work with us as a community. They both want to be in Dawson Creek, so that's nice. They're excited about being here. They're excited about what this whole area has to offer. They drove around, did some touring around the area, and they're very excited about being up here. It's kind of the next steps in his career. And where he sees himself being for a while. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that I met with him. I'm really looking forward to him coming up. And nothing against what Staff Sergeant Jamie Moffat's been doing, but it's will be definitely nice for our city to have that permanent position filled. So. And then I just wanted to touch a little bit too, just to get out in the community, just the BC Housing. We've been having some dialogue. Kevin has as well, just in regards to the facility that we have downtown, that there's some clarification on what the original intent was for. So we're just kind of, and it was brought up with our meeting with MLA Bernier as well. So we're just trying to get some information around, or Kevin is, so I don't want to take credit for any of it, but Kevin's been working very hard to get as much information as we can around it, and we'll likely be bringing something to council in the next meeting or two about writing a letter just in regards to that facility. That, and then I just add one other thing too. I might let Councillor Kemp speak to this a little bit, just because she knows a little bit more about it, but there was the Easter Bunny thing that was brought up on the weekend. Somebody donated, somebody dressed up as the Easter Bunny, or I don't know if it was the real Easter Bunny, was out there and taking pictures with kids and stuff. And I kind of skipped through new councillor business a little quick, so I missed Councillor Kemp just giving an update on that. So we'll just hand it over to you, and then I'll come back to the rest.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the individuals that were responsible for that Easter Bunny showing up this weekend. It was amazing for the community, young and old. Even some fur babies showed up for the opportunity to meet the Easter Bunny, and it was just something amazing for community pride and at the NAR Park. And I know it was very well attended, so thank you very much to the individuals that were responsible for it. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks, Councillor Kemp. All right. Anybody have any questions for me around any of that? Councillor Parslow.
Yes, I know it's great you getting out to see some of these businesses. I just want to encourage council to, if they can, go with you when you tour the Dawson Creek Society for Community Living. The social support services in this community employ an awful lot of people, 80, 100. But I think you might be amazed at what services are provided here and the commitment of the staff. So I know you have a date for that, but I just want to encourage others to go if they can, because I think it's important to know all aspects of the community, not just business and sports and stuff, but also all the great services that are offered here by the Social Services Network.
Yeah, I agree. After you told me that you did the tour and how amazing it was, I reached out right away. I wanted to do that. So.
Absolutely. And with the gun show, yes, I can confirm that it was the highest attendance ever, in excess of 5,000, I believe, 5,200. Doesn't matter. It was the largest gun show ever held, from the point of view of attendance. But you might be also interested that I'd say, how Chambers of Commerce talk about the draw, the population of the area they draw in, and well, we had people there in every direction, and I would say from our draw would be 600 kilometers north, south, east, and west. People from Edmonton, people from Vanderhoof, Smithers, Watson Lake, because this is the third largest gun show in Western Canada. Number 1 is Calgary. Number 2 is Kamloops. Number 3 is Dawson Creek. Yeah. This is a big event. Entirely volunteers. No government help or support. All volunteers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, such an amazing thing. Thank you. Any other questions? No? All right. Next, we have 10.2. We have a delegation request from Vinay Parmar. Request for monument. I don't know if anybody's wanting to put a motion forward.
I had. Sorry.
I didn't say your name.
I had great appreciation for Councillor Earl's suggestion of a possible monument at the hospital. And I would like to hear a motion from him for that.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald.
Councillor Earl, I see you pushed your button.
So I might look for some guidance from staff on the best way to do this. I guess the first step would be to make a formal ask of Northern Health that as they do the planning for our new hospital, they perhaps take into consideration that we would like part of the to be built hospital to include a memorial display, in remembrance of those who've passed on from COVID. I don't know, is the best way to do that by way of a letter, by way of should that be the motion I make? Brenda, Kevin, suggestions? Sorry.
So through your worship, our development services team have a pretty good relationship with the design team, architect with the hospital. So maybe before we send a letter, I think just direction to staff.
Okay.
We can reach out and see if this is even something that's a possibility or would be, and we can start that,
And
before, and then maybe they'll come back and suggest that a formal letter be sent. But let's start there.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we direct staff to reach out to Northern Health's capital planning people to gauge their interest in pursuing this, or ask if this is something they might be interested in partnering with us on.
Second, Councillor McDonald. Discussion. Councillor Parslow.
Well, I hate to say that I don't agree with Councillor Earl on this matter, so I'm not going to say that. But I'm definitely unsure. When I was listening to this presentation, I was thinking of other places where people grieve and mourn. And I'm not sure if the hospital is the right place. I was pretty touched, as you can tell, by seeing such a place where families would come together and gather and grieve. And I don't think the hospital is a suitable place. I am thinking of the RCMP depot and the scenes I've seen there of grief at the memorial to fallen police officers. And so I definitely, it resonates as a need, but I am not so sure that that's the place. I was thinking, and I don't know the name of this location, I should do, but we have a area of Kin Park that is rarely visited by me. But is it called Peace Memorial?
Peace Park, I think, is.
And I was wondering if a memorial such as this, right, and it might be broader than just COVID, is we have some place that has a nice setting, would be more appropriate than a hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. In the discussion, I kind of, what you just said, Councillor Parslow, kind of resonates with me as well. I don't know. And I know that, there is some policies in place around, or there was in the past around Kin Park and putting benches or plaques or monuments. Like, I don't know if I guess we could change the motion to have staff come back with that. I think we could probably talk to that as well already. But yeah, I kind of maybe agree. I don't know if the hospital would be the right place. So yeah. I don't know, is there any other discussion? Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship. So what made me think the hospital is obviously, I know from my time there at the foundation in the cancer care unit, there's a section on the wall where people can purchase through a donation to the foundation, leaves they put up to commemorate people who either passed on from cancer or beat cancer. Similarly, there's, on a very different note, for people whose children are born in the hospital, they can buy a little commemorative footprint. So it's maybe, if there is a more artful place to put this or a more tactful place to put it, I'm not opposed to hearing it. I just thought with a new hospital incoming, it might be opportune. And also, I guess just the uniqueness of this particular phenomenon with COVID-19 is so much of it was focused around healthcare capacity, public health, that I thought that might be appropriate. But I'm not, ultimately this is in service to the memory of people who've passed on. So I do want to be tactful about how we observe that. So if there's a better location, I'm not opposed to hearing about it.
I guess to that being said, like how they have the foot in the cancer one, like those are, people, it's a bit of a fundraiser too, so maybe there's no harm in reaching out to see what, maybe there is something first, so. Okay.
So I don't know that my motion necessarily precludes us looking at other options. If we hear back from Northern Health and just gauge what their thoughts are on it, we do then still retain the option to move ahead or not based on what we think is in the interest. But I think it might be nice to know, where they stand on it. As I said, it did, I think, impact them and, as an organization, as an institution, as a segment of our society, probably more pointedly than most others, so.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Go ahead, Kevin.
So through your worship, just question is, funding. If there is a cost associated with this, you know, whether it be in the hospital or if it ends up being somewhere else, just to be clear from stuff, is this something the council is looking at funding, the creation, construction, whatever we might end up landing on? Because that might provide some parameters for us too, of what we're looking at.
I think from my understanding is this is just to look into what possibilities there are there. I don't think council is wanting to commit any funds.
At this
or-
point?
I don't get that, yeah. Maybe if it comes back saying that this is, but I think that's a different discussion personally, but. Councillor McDonald?
I just wanted to point out, as part of Vinnie's request, he mentioned having, the names of the victims of COVID up there as well, and for privacy's sake and everything else, it being a volunteer, right? And a leave program like that in the hospital gives families the option to want to put their family member's name forward on that, right? And be a part of a said memorial.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe we could reach out, when we reach out to Northern Health, we could reach out to just the hospital foundation as well and ask that. But Councillor Earl?
Yes, Your Worship. So, part of the, another thing, less of a consideration, but still a consideration, is always cost, I guess. And I thought, given that they're building a new hospital, we could potentially, if there is some partnership or financial burden borne by us, that would be less than it otherwise might be if we can get in on the ground floor before they're finalized on their plans to see what can be included without additional cost to us. So that is also a consideration, but not obviously the most important one when you're talking about something like this.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. All right, if there's no more discussion, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. Next, we had delegation 2.2. We had John Vetter and Art Seidel here from the South Peace Crime Prevention and the Dawes Creek Rural Crime Watch. I don't take that there's a direct ask today. I think as things go and we move forward and work with them, and there might be, but there was a comment that Councillor Earl brought up about having a liaison. So I don't know, Brenda, do we need to, like, in order to appoint somebody from council that could sit in that, do we need to make a motion for that?
It would depend, through your worship, the mayor can appoint liaisons to committees.
Okay.
I think it might be best to first approach the organization and get a response back if the whole organization would welcome the liaison, so maybe a letter to them.
So we kind of asked that while they were
First.
here and they said yes, but we need to have something in writing.
I believe so. That-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's just something we can do. We don't need a motion for that then?
It would not hurt to have the support of council in your motion, and then we can include that in the letter to the organization.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
motion would be in order.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion? Councillor Earl?
Well, I'd like to hear what, no, just kidding. I'll, I'll move that council approve the appointment of a liaison of the mayor's choice on behalf of the city to the South Peace Crime Prevention Association, following the assent of their council to be chosen by the mayor.
Second? Councillor McDonald? Any discussion? I will call this to vote when I can. All right, I'll call this to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Thank you, Brenda. All right, next 11. Counselor Parslow?
Yeah, it relates to the presentation. With the new staff sergeant here, I think I would like to just raise the issue of this restorative justice program. It's very powerful, and I can't see why we can't express a desire for the detachment to engage in some leadership in re-establishing that here.
Leadership within the community.
Pardon?
Leadership within the community and.
Well, within the community and in their own own detachment. But yeah, there's training involved, but it's a very effective tool. I know the judge I know would welcome it. Has been there in the arsenal of options within the community. So I don't think it's an unreasonable thing for a council to outline an expectation on the detachment that they work towards fostering and engaging in leadership in establishing a restorative justice program in our community.
Is it worth putting a motion forward to have staff get some information on this or reach
Whatever.
out to put? Because
Whatever,
I
yeah,
don't,
they don't-
I
they're
don't
not
know a
aware.
lot about it. Like, I'm
Oh,
not that
okay.
educated in it, so,
Yeah.
and I don't know if others are.
No.
No.
Okay. It's also well accepted by the First Nations community.
Yeah. Okay. So
Sure,
Kevin, would
staff
that be
could do
worth
that.
putting a motion forward to have staff get information on that? Okay. Would you mind putting a motion forward, Councillor Park?
Certainly. That Kevin, that staff provide information on a restorative justice system.
Okay, to council. Second? Councillor Kemp? Any discussion? No? All right, I did see the button flash, Brenda, is it still? Okay. Kevin, do you need any more clarification on that, or? No, okay. Okay, all right, I will call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business is 11, the Chief Administrative Officer Operational Update. Kevin, I don't know if you...
Good morning. Just a couple quick updates. It appears spring is in the air, so we're transitioning in our operations. The ice is coming out of the Memorial Arena this Sunday. Sure sign of spring. There's also an ice users meeting tonight, which is kind of that seasonal meeting for all the ice user groups. We've started sweeping the downtown over the weekend. We had some completed and we're ongoing with that. So we'll be out and about trying to pick up all the winter sand and rock and everything that comes with it. And lastly, pothole reporting. We have it on a webpage. The top banner that scrolls across, there is a link there for reporting potholes, or there is an email, which is pothole@dawsoncreek.ca, or you can do it with the city app and report any potholes that you may come across, and then that goes to Public Works, and then we get that on the list to try and resolve as soon as we can. Interesting fact is that we use a artificial intelligent program that when we drive city streets, it looks at all the streets and identifies any potholes. We can import all that information in and determine where they are, what they are, and then we can use that as to create lists for our operational staff to go out and fix. So last year when we went out about this time of year and did our drive around, we found that we had around 769 potholes throughout the community. And we all know last year was an exceptionally tough year for potholes around. We've recently drove the streets here about a week or two ago, and according to the latest report, we have 157, so a marked improvement from last year. So that stems from a much different spring than we had last year as far as how the melt went and all of that. It also speaks to the amount of effort that crews put in last summer trying to repair a number of them. So we're in a much better spot today than we were at this point last year. So that's good news. So any questions on any of that? I'll be
Thanks,
pleased
Kevin.
to.
I think Councillor Parslow is going to go do a drive and challenge your number.
Yeah.
Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, just, I meant to phone you about this. I think there's one location where maybe 30 of those potholes are located. And I think we're in danger of losing the entire road. And it's very close to where phase 1 of the Camara subdivision work was done last year. So I'll show you, I just want to show you on a map because I think, well, there's not going to be much left to fix. It might be a whole, not a whole road, but an area about this length, just disintegration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. All right, thanks, Kevin. Next, 12, diary. Do we have anything from the diary? Nothing from the diary. 13, consent calendar. Nothing from the consent calendar. Nothing in the consent calendar. 14, strategic priority chart. I just wanted to touch a little bit. There was an email sent out, I think, about 10 days ago on the strategic plan. So I'll apologize. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet and, and get my thoughts back as well. But I know Councillor Parslow did send some in. So I was chatting with Kevin this morning. We were thinking about maybe reaching out and having Brian come to a committee of the whole for an hour on Zoom just to kind of wrap it up. So I maybe shouldn't have said that because I don't know if that can happen, but we're thinking of maybe having a meeting with him present for a committee of the whole so we can kind of wrap it up. And if there was some things that we felt were different or missed, we can talk about it then. So, but I just wanted to, encourage everybody to go through that that email that was sent out and send their notes in. So I know I need to as well. So I don't know if you had anything to add on that, Kevin? No? Okay. Next order, 15 media questions. There's no media here. 16, recess to close meetings. So resolution to move into meeting of council closed to the public. Agenda items 3.1, 4.1, and 7.1, section 90 minutes as previously noted. Agenda item 6.1, section 91J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And agenda item 7.2, section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. A motion, Councillor Sudnick, second, Councillor McDonald. We'll call that to vote. Vote is closed, and it's carried, so we'll move into closed. Thank you.